So, guys, we're Gym Life Sports. Okay, so let's talk The Last Dance documentary with Mike about Michael Jordan and the '96 Bulls. I mean, the '98 Bulls. It's really about their last championship season. But what's cool is we get a whole lot of backstory throughout Michael Jordan's career, which includes his teammates Scottie Pippen, Horace Grant. You have John Paxson in there. You have Dennis Rodman. Dennis Rodman's a really great character, anyway. But besides that, it's just a great documentary. We get backstory and his GM Jerry Krause, who got there in '85. So I mean, we get everything. We even get the owner. Um, we even got where he was born. All that backstory. But if you didn't know Michael Jordan, well, now you know. So you get a lot more inside stuff than you did before. Man, it's really great. I think because not only do we get to know Michael Jordan, his team, the thing, what happened, what led to their championships. We get to inside scoop of Michael Jordan before he was on the Bulls. What happened in high school when he didn't make the varsity team. His mentality on the game, how he really transformed himself when he didn't make the varsity team. Came back next year after he practiced all summer, made the varsity team when he got to college. How James Worthy was the best player on that North Carolina team. He said he was the best player for 2 weeks. And then it was Michael Jordan. And then you saw Michael Jordan after he hit that game winner. And then he just took off. So what this really symbolizes to me is that the Michael Jordan to me probably is the most talented NBA player who walked the planet. Now that's a big statement because you've had players like Wilt Chamberlain who was 7'1", 250, and at one point was 300 pounds. But this was a guy in Wilt Chamberlain who could, I think they said he could deadlift 600 pounds plus. He was just a physical specimen. It's crazy. He scored 100 points in the game. He averaged 30 points and 22 rebounds for his career, which is unheard of, and it's not even been done since. That's how great of a rebounder he was. But the reason I say Michael Jordan is probably the most physically gifted player ever, and I think people keep saying LeBron is on a different level and Jordan might be more athletic. I don't think so. Um, LeBron can jump out the gym, but so can Michael. You know, it's crazy just the things that you saw him doing even in his rookie year. Who in their mind averages 28 points and 5 rebounds and 5 assists as a rookie? He was a rookie doing this. It's incredible. I don't think he made the playoffs in his first year. I believe he did not make the playoffs. He made the playoffs in his second year when he got injured, which I think it just even symbolizes how great he really is. This dude was, I think, playing only 14 minutes, and he somehow was helping and willing his team into the playoffs. He was not going to tank. Michael Jordan was that much of a winner that he was not going to let his team tank for a draft pick to get into the lottery. He was like, I'm going to make the dang playoffs. I don't care if I have to play 14 minutes. I'm going to give everything in my 14 minutes just so we can make the playoffs. And he's thanking the Lord because if John Paxson didn't make that shot, all that would have been for nothing because the GM was like, you are not going to play more than 14 minutes. That's just what it was. So, I love this documentary because it just gives us the inside stuff. I've watched a lot of stuff on Michael Jordan. I've seen a lot of footage, highlights and stuff, but this is the raw stuff. How are you? They said this is the video footage, all the stuff of their last championship season. Bro, they've got stuff from years before that. Apparently, y'all been filming this dude for years, So I love his documentary, but as cool as it is to see Jordan and to see, how he's grown, we can talk a little bit about the Bad Boy Pistons real quick and how great they were for him. And one notion is people keep saying that the Bad Boy Pistons got old. Well, last time I checked, I think Joe Dumars was only 27. Isaiah Thomas was only 29. Wasn't Bill Laimbeer only 33, but he wasn't a high flyer. So his 33 is more like a 31 because he wasn't really one of those athletic type of guys. And this is a guy in Bill Laimbeer who was playing 82 games a year for years. He said he would have had the most consecutive games played because he just wasn't a guy who was getting injured because he didn't put himself out there like that. So to me, even Dennis Rodman was only 29. So the notion that they were old, I think, is a little overstated. They really weren't that old of a team. But I think mentally they got worn out. You can say that. They got mentally worn out because they've been to the finals for 4 straight years. I think it was what they said. And they were in the conference finals for years. Like, they were battling, competing. They took it from the Boston Celtics, who before them took it from the Philadelphia 76ers. I mean, the Eastern Conference back then was wild. It was crazy. There was fights. There was brawls. But it was, to me, it was just great basketball also being played. You know, a lot of defense back then. Nothing against today's game. Today's game is awesome. But back then, it was just a different level of competition, a different level of play. You even have the Atlanta Hawks who are competing. Because now, I'm gonna be honest, they're not good. The only thing they got right now is Trae Young, who's just balling out of his mind, averaging over 29 points. But that's about it. And then he don't stick no defense on the other end. So it's, but he's a great player in itself. But I mean, when you look at go back then, like for the past 30 years, 30 years, 30 years ago, it was a great time. I wasn't alive back then. I was born in 99, so I didn't get to see that. I didn't even get to see Michael Jordan's glory years. I've seen basically LeBron's entire career. I really only started following the NBA basically 2011 when I really saw the finals where LeBron just, that was bad. So we're not even going to get into that. But what this documentary to me has it's as great as it is now, it's kind of turned into a LeBron versus Jordan, kind of minimizing LeBron or kind of taking shots at him. You saw David Blatt say Jordan is bigger than LeBron. He maximized took the I out of team basically. He said something about it being more about we instead of I. So I don't know what kind of shot that is about LeBron, saying LeBron's selfish even though he, the stats say otherwise. I will say, my biggest critique that I've told you guys is that LeBron seems to only want to play LeBron ball, which is he goes into the post, he backs you down, and then he waits for the defense to make a mistake, which is he has a guy cut on the perimeter, a guy follows, and the defense kind of just is lulled to sleep because LeBron is just waiting for you to make a mistake, which has worked because he's a 3-time champion, but also has not been as successful as you think. So my thing is, if LeBron was a great off-ball player, I think LeBron he would have more championships. And I say that because this league, the NBA is about evolution. We've evolved away from isolation ball due to not only the Warriors, but the Spurs. The Spurs really, to me, Steph Curry started the 3-point movement, but the ball movement really started with the San Antonio Spurs. That's who it really started with. And it started with, also, you can also go back to the 90s with a Phil Jackson system called the triangle, which emphasized a lot of cuts. I think Jay Williams said on ESPN the other day, it involved at least 32 cuts. And a cut is like when a player's on the perimeter and it's like a quick, I don't know how to explain a cut, but you're really just going to the basket to try to draw the defense in, draw your defender in, and it kind of just opens up space around the court. I mean, basketball is a great game because it emphasizes patience and it emphasizes a lot of different philosophies. It's crazy. I love basketball, but 32 cuts, So really, the triangle has evolved into a lot of different things. The Spurs really took it, I think, expanded on it, and now the Warriors run kind of a simpler version of it, but it works to their advantage because of their perimeter shooting. So they've basically made it a 3-point triangle offense. It's crazy the way their offense runs, the way the Spurs run their offense. It's really cool if you think about how basketball's evolved. But back to LeBron. LeBron in himself is like one of the greatest players ever, of course. But to me, his detriment is he's a guy who needs to have the ball to really be effective. LeBron would be even so much more dangerous if the ball was not in his hands and he's screening for guys and he's drawing the defense away from other players. Like, imagine that. Because LeBron, though he's not a great shooter, and if he developed his shooting a little more, he could have been more dangerous. But LeBron in himself is just a distraction. Because if LeBron's cutting to the basket, you're hitting him because he finishes around 70% for his career around the basket. That's how efficient he is. So, that's been the only detriment I've had. Is that LeBron, to me, is just not. He's a good team player, but he could have been a better team player. And I still think he can evolve because as you get older, you lose your athleticism to a certain degree. And LeBron's not going to be this athletic for years to come. So if him making this addition to his game, which is being a guy who does not need the ball to be successful because he can draw attention away from the ball, I think that's one thing because this era is about ball movement. It's about not necessarily having the ball and being able to score with different players on your team. That's what makes the Warriors successful. Steph Curry does not need to have the ball to be successful. Klay Thompson does not need the ball in his hands to be successful. Those two together create so many problems because of the way they run off screens, the way they set screens. LeBron doesn't do that. That's my characteristic of him. LeBron is a guy who kind of is stubborn and he believes his way works, So that's a critique that to me is justified. And here's another problem I have is that these LeBron fans, I have nothing against LeBron fans. You can be a LeBron fan. But what gets really disrespectful, what really starts to tick me off is when you call people haters because they don't seem to want to agree with you that LeBron's the GOAT. I don't think LeBron's the GOAT. I think LeBron, in order to be the GOAT, would have to do some things. Listen, I just don't think he's the GOAT. I don't think he's the greatest to ever do it. I think you could even put Kareem ahead of him. I don't know why people don't. Kareem is to me more accomplished than LeBron is. Kareem has 6 MVPs. He has 5 titles. He did play with Magic, but he had the skyhook. He was a guy who played defense for years until he did get older. He was a guy who was averaging over 10 rebounds for his career. He's the most scored the most points in NBA history. I mean, he's accomplished. He played for 20 years. He's an accomplished guy. You could even put, if you really want to be honest, you could have a legitimate argument for him being better than Michael Jordan if you wanted to. But the reason people say Jordan is better is because when you watch him play, there's not a word you could describe how he played. And some guy on YouTube, I've been arguing on YouTube with people for a while, ever since this documentary has been coming out, it's been a while, okay? Jordan is, and somebody says this is a bad analogy. No, it's not. Jordan is an artist. Basketball to me is an art form. Jordan is probably the Picasso of basketball. There's been a lot of great artists, but people say Picasso. I'm making a lot of analogies. I'm sorry if you can't follow me, but I'm saying like his artistry it's like you can't describe it because of the way he played. People say it's his killer instinct. No, it's something else that you can't name. Like when you watch him, you're in awe. Not only because of his athleticism, but the way he shot the ball, his fadeaway, his footwork, his technique, his skill work is something that is unnamed. Like every time I watch him, every time you see the highlights, I wish we had full games just to see how great he was, not only offensively but defensively. Because back then, hand checking to me is, people say that's why they were great defenders back then. There's an art to hand checking that people don't understand. Because when you hand checked, it was to steer a guy the way you wanted him to steer him. Not only did you hand check, but you put your body in front of a guy. Hand checking to me was there as a way not only to steer a guy, but if you're behind a guy, you hand check so you can get your body back in front of him. Because even though they say today's people are more faster and stronger, don't take these guys back then as scrubs. And another thing I'm going to get you LeBron fans for is you keep saying those guys were plumbers back then. The NBA has evolved. Yes, players have gotten more athletic. But don't act like back then. Here it is. Those guys back then were even way more skilled than the players today. And I'll tell you why. Because not everybody back then was Michael Jordan. You had to have a way to be successful back then. And you know what that was? You had to be skilled. It's a perfect example. Larry Bird. I think he's underrated because of how skilled he was at basketball. Not only was he a great trash talker, but he was one of the best shooters ever. And shooting is a skill. He was a great passer. Passing is a skill. To me, rebounding is a skill. Like Dennis Rodman, it's a skill because you have to know where the ball is going. You have to be able to trace it. Wherever the ball hits the rim, it's a split-second reaction time to get in position to rebound. That's why they say, Dennis Rodman is one of the best rebounders ever, if not the best. Though I say it's between him, Wilt Chamberlain, and Bill Russell. Rebounding is about positioning and really finding and guessing where the ball is going to go. That's how rebounding is. So those guys back then in the 80s and 90s, they weren't plumbers. They are some of the most skilled players to ever play. Not everybody can be Michael Jordan and Dominique Wilkins. Okay? I'm sorry if today's players are more athletic and then back then they didn't shoot a lot of threes. Well, I'm sorry. Back then was about big men and the post and getting inside. Back then, you go inside, you're gonna get beat up because back then they didn't have the 3-second rule where you have to be in constant motion. That's why to me, LeBron's numbers they're great, but when you say you could put LeBron in any era, you're not being totally honest. Because, like I said, evolution. You can't just throw a guy in any era in his prime. I think Max Kellerman on ESPN said it best. Evolution. You don't just throw a guy in. You have to think about it. If Jordan was born basically at the same time or near around the same time as LeBron, to me, he'd probably be more athletic because of the medicine, because of how you work out now, the regimens that you have. And Michael Jordan for his time was still crazy. So imagine today. Imagine Michael Jordan being even more skilled because he would have to know that to be more effective, shooting the three is a key. He was already a great free throw shooter. He probably would even be a better free throw shooter now because if you watched him, you saw his jump shot evolve. It went from him shooting where his arm kind of went far out, then extended to where he shot it and he brought the ball over his forehead. There's a difference from when he started shooting to how he evolved. That's why, to me, Jordan is just a different player because of his evolution was just so amazing to watch. From his rookie year to his last year in Chicago. People say you take out all the years in the Wizards years, he was still averaging 20 on the Wizards. He wasn't the best player. He wasn't really a great player, but he still played pretty solid basketball. So, I say all this to say that. And let me finish this LeBron point. I'm not saying LeBron's numbers are flawed, but what if we didn't take away all these hand-checking rules? What if the pace of play wasn't sped up to where average NBA teams are averaging over 111 points per game? When back then, if you scored 100, it was like, wow, you scored 100 points in a game. Whoa. Back then, the scores were, kind of, 87, 90, maybe mid-90s more often, but the pace of play is just sped up because you can't foul touching, you just can't touch players anymore, really. You got to put your body in front of them or you got to beat the man to the spot these days. You can't camp in the lane. You have to be constantly in motion. So, back then, it's just a different era. So you can say LeBron has better numbers, but LeBron has been at the appreciation of pace of play. The game is just sped up majorly. So, do I think 90s was the golden age of basketball? It's hard to say. I don't think there has been a golden age. I think what's cool is just the game has evolved. And this is the last thing I'm going to mention about LeBron. I'm sick of these LeBron fans also saying that, oh, well, LeBron had to go for social media. These people scrutinizing him. Oh, well, I'm sorry. Hasn't he also benefited? Hasn't he been documented as a great humanitarian? Last time I checked, they documented him opening up a school. I mean, how hard would it have been for people to know that LeBron opened up a school back then? Even back then, Jordan was getting scrutinized by people all the time back then. People mention him as a great player, but he's still getting scrutinized. Jordan early in his career is being scrutinized as a me guy, not a team guy. That's what I mean by his evolution. To me, it was just greater. His flaws, this guy on YouTube made a video. I don't remember what it was, but it was about Jordan versus LeBron. And LeBron, to him, he said, which he made a lot of great points, LeBron just has a lot more flaws than Jordan did. That's not to say that Jordan wasn't flawless. It's just to say that when you watch Jordan, there wasn't a lot to critique about him. For LeBron, even though it's a social media age, you could do a lot more things. There's a lot more critiques that you could see, you know. Um, but that doesn't take away anything from LeBron. I really do like LeBron. As a matter of fact, he's been, a major influence on today's game. He's a major influence on young players. But wow, like his fans are crazy, man. You know, I know one LeBron fan who, to me, he's one fan that makes actual sense. It's a team game. He said to me, we had a conversation. He's like, it's a team game. So you blame LeBron to give LeBron all the praise, but you guys forget it's a team game. So his success is not solely just him. It's a team game, you know. So I'm gonna touch on this a lot more often. I'm gonna have to get back on this. I'm gonna get on these LeBron fans because y'all been acting crazy ever since the documentary came out. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. Y'all been acting real crazy. So you know I'm gonna have to get back on you guys' heads because you guys have, I think, taken advantage of this as a way to kind of display your displeasures. Your kind of biased views. So we're gonna come back at you. This is no way. The person I just talked about is a friend of mine, so this is not at him. He's the guy to me who makes sense. But your other LeBron fans, y'all in a different category of crazy. I'm coming for y'all strategically. So but that's gonna do it for this video. It's Perfect Gym Life Sports. Thank you guys for listening. I really appreciate what you guys have done. The support, and I hope you guys are staying healthy and staying well. That's the important thing here. So you guys have a great day. You guys be safe, and you guys, life is killing right now. But you gotta stay positive, and you gotta find the best things in life. To me, you gotta find things that make you happy and do it. But we're gonna touch on that in a video itself. So thank you guys for listening. It's Perfect Life Sports. See you guys in the next video.